Have you ever wondered, quietly, in a moment you didn't say out loud to anyone, whether you've finally worn out your welcome? Not with a person, with God. Whether somewhere along the way, after the mistakes, the wasted years, the prayers that seemed to go unanswered, He simply stopped expecting you to come back. It's a strange question to sit with. Most of us never say it plainly, even to ourselves. It hides underneath other feelings, underneath the guilt, the numbness, the quiet distance you've put between yourself and the faith you used to have. But if you listen closely enough, tonight, in the stillness, you'll probably recognize it. That question has been there for a while. So let's ask it honestly, instead of letting it sit in the dark. Has God given up on you? Tonight, I want to sit with you in that question, not to rush you toward an easy answer, but to gently, patiently, show you something truer than the fear underneath it. Something that has been true since before you were born and will still be true long after tonight is over. God does not give up on people. He never has. Let that settle for a moment, because I know your mind will want to argue with it. Your mind will bring up the mistakes, the wasted years, the promises you made and broke, the version of yourself you're ashamed of. It will bring up all of it, like a lawyer building a case, and it will ask, how could he still want you, knowing what he knows? But here is the quiet, steady answer, underneath all of that noise. He has always known. Every failure you're hiding was already seen before you hid it. Every doubt you've ever had about yourself. He had already considered, and he stayed anyway. Not because he is naive about who you are, because he is not naive at all. He sees you with total clarity, and he remains. That is not the description of someone who gives up easily. That is the description of a love that does not run on your performance. Think for a moment about the people in your life who have loved you conditionally, even if they didn't mean to. The ones whose warmth cooled when you disappointed them. The ones who kept score without telling you the rules. It's not their fault, necessarily. Most people love the only way they've been taught to love, which is carefully, cautiously, with an exit always in view. But that is not the shape of the love we're talking about tonight. This love was never cautious. It walked toward the very people who were least impressive, least deserving by the world's math, least likely to pay it back. It did not require you to clean yourself up first. It did not wait at a distance until you proved yourself. It moved first. It always moves first. You may be sitting there tonight with a long list of reasons you think disqualify you. Let's look at a few of them honestly, because pretending they don't exist won't heal anything. Maybe you think you've failed too many times. You started again and again, and each time you slipped back into the same old pattern, the same addiction, the same anger, the same fear that made you sabotage the good thing right in front of you. And somewhere along the way, you decided that your track record spoke for you, that the pattern was the whole truth about who you are. But a pattern is not a sentence. A pattern is just something that hasn't been interrupted yet. And the entire story we're describing tonight is a story of interruption. Of someone stepping into the middle of the pattern and saying, "Not this time, not the end, not for you." Maybe you think you waited too long. You spent your best years chasing things that didn't matter. And now you feel like you're arriving late to your own life, hat in hand, asking for a grace you're not sure you deserve. I want you to hear this clearly. There is no such thing as arriving too late to a love that was never on a clock in the first place. Time is your framework, not his. What feels like the 11th hour to you is not a deadline to him. It is simply now. And now is always enough. Maybe you think you did something unforgivable, something you've never told anyone, something you carry alone in the dark, replaying it at 3 in the morning when the house is quiet and your defenses are down. I won't pretend to know what it is. But I will tell you this. Whatever it is not bigger than the willingness to forgive. Nothing you have done has surprised him. Nothing you have done has exhausted his patience. You may have run out of patience with yourself. He has not run out of patience with you. Maybe it isn't guilt at all. Maybe it's just exhaustion. You've prayed the same prayer for years and heard nothing back. You've watched other people get their miracle while you're still waiting for a whisper. And the silence has started to feel like rejection. Like maybe you were forgotten in the queue. Like maybe your file got lost somewhere. I want to be gentle here, because this is one of the heaviest weights a person can carry. Silence is not the same thing as absence. A season where you don't feel anything is not proof that nothing is happening. Some of the most important work in a person's life happens exactly in the parts where they can't see or feel it yet. The way roots grow in the dark, underground, completely invisible, long before anything breaks the surface. You are not being ignored, you are being formed. And formation is slow, unglamorous work that rarely announces itself. Let's talk, too, about the specific shape of giving up, because I think it helps to name it clearly. Giving up on a person looks like walking away. It looks like withdrawal, silence used as punishment, a slow fading of interest until the relationship quietly dies from neglect. It looks like writing someone off, deciding they are what they've always been, and stopping the work of hoping for something better in them. Now hold that picture up next to the way this love actually behaves. It does not withdraw when you withdraw. It does not match your coldness with more coldness. When you turn away, it does not use that as an excuse to finally let go, the way a person might say, "Well, I tried. I gave them every chance. I'm done now." That posture, that kind of conditional patience, simply isn't in the character we're describing. Instead, picture someone who keeps the light on, who keeps setting a place at the table, even when the chair has been empty for years, who does not need you to explain the years you spent somewhere else before it will welcome you back, who runs toward you while you're still far off, before you've even finished rehearsing your apology, because the joy of your return matters more than the accounting of your failure. That is not a metaphor for weakness. That is the opposite of weakness. It takes an enormous, almost incomprehensible strength to love like that, to keep choosing someone who hasn't yet chosen you back, to hold the door open through years of silence, to absorb rejection without becoming bitter, without becoming distant, without deciding that enough is enough. You have never met a human being who can sustain that kind of love without limit. Every person you know has a breaking point, a threshold past which their patience runs out, because human love, even the best of it, is still finite. It gets tired, it gets hurt, it has to protect itself sometimes by pulling back. But you are not being loved by a finite thing tonight. You are being loved by something without a bottom to it. There is no version of you so far gone that it exceeds the depth of that love. Not the years you wasted, not the people you hurt, not the faith you lost, or the anger you still carry toward him for the things that happened to you that you never asked for and never deserved. Let's stay there for a moment, because I don't want to skip past it. Some of you aren't wrestling with guilt tonight. You're wrestling with anger. Something happened to you. Something unfair. Something that broke your trust. Something that made you ask, where was he when it mattered most? And in the silence that followed, you quietly decided that maybe he had given up on you first. That maybe the abandonment started on his end. I won't try to answer the question of suffering in a few sentences, because it deserves more respect than that. But I will tell you this. Anger is not the opposite of relationship. Distance is. And the fact that you're still angry, still asking, still demanding an answer, means some thread is still holding. The threads that are truly gone don't get angry anymore. They just go quiet. Your anger, as uncomfortable as it feels, might actually be evidence that you haven't fully let go either. That some part of you is still waiting to be met, still hoping to be answered, even if you'd never admit that out loud. You are allowed to bring that anger with you. You do not have to arrive at peace before you're welcome. You do not have to resolve your doubts in a tidy little bow before you're allowed back in the room. Come as you are, with the anger, with the doubt, with the questions that don't have satisfying answers yet. That door has never required a clean version of you to walk through it. Before we go further, I want to address something that often hides underneath all of this: the feeling of being alone in it. Not just distant from God, but distant from people too. Maybe you've stopped going to the places you used to go. Maybe you've stopped answering the calls. Maybe you've quietly convinced yourself that it's easier, safer, less humiliating to just disappear from the community you used to belong to, rather than show up as the version of yourself you've become. I understand that instinct. Shame loves isolation. It thrives in it. It tells you that if people really saw the state you're in, they would recoil, they would judge, they would confirm the very worst thing you already believe about yourself. So you protect yourself by vanishing. You let the calls go to voicemail. You stop showing up. You convince yourself that this quiet withdrawal is a kind of mercy, sparing everyone the burden of you. But withdrawal is rarely mercy. It's usually just fear wearing a more respectable coat. And the tragedy of it is that the very connection you're avoiding is often the exact thing that would remind you you're not as far gone as you feel. Isolation doesn't protect you from shame. It feeds it. It gives shame a quiet room to grow in, undisturbed, with no other voice around to contradict it. I'm not telling you tonight to go fix every relationship you've let go quiet. That's not a task for one evening, and it's certainly not a task for right before sleep. But I am asking you to consider, gently, that the isolation you've built around yourself might not be the safety it pretends to be. At some point, in your own time, in your own way, it will be worth letting one person back in. Just one. Not to explain yourself fully, not to perform an apology. Just to be seen again, a little at a time, by someone who isn't going anywhere. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. The love we've been talking about tonight rarely reaches people only in private, alone, in a locked room with the lights off. Most of the time it reaches people through other people. Through a voice on the phone, a hand on a shoulder, a friend who shows up with food and doesn't ask you to explain anything. If you've cut yourself off from every one of those channels, you haven't escaped being found. You've just made it harder for yourself to feel it when you are. I want to talk now about what it means to be pursued, because I think a lot of us have the picture backwards. We imagine ourselves as the ones doing the searching, trying to find God, trying to be good enough to earn His attention, trying to climb some invisible ladder of worthiness until we finally reach a rung where He notices us. But that has the direction wrong. From the very beginning, He has been the one who comes looking, not because you're impressive, not because you've earned it, simply because you are His, and the ones who belong to Him are never left to wander forever without someone coming to find them. Think about what it means that a shepherd will leave 99 sheep who are safe, who are accounted for, who need nothing from him in that moment, and go out into the dangerous, uncertain dark after the one who wandered off. From the outside, that looks like bad math. It looks reckless. Why risk everything that's already secure for the one that got itself lost? But that is exactly the kind of love we're talking about. It does not operate on efficient math. It is not calculating your value against the cost of finding you. It simply will not rest while you're missing. Not because you're the most obedient. not because you're the easiest to love. Simply because you are the one who is lost right now, and that alone is reason enough to come looking. If you feel like the one sheep tonight, the one who wandered furthest, the one who has been gone the longest, the one who assumes by now the search has been called off, I want you to hear this slowly. The search was never called off. It doesn't work that way. There is no point at which you become too far gone to be worth finding. There is no distance you can put between yourself and that pursuit that becomes the final straw, the place where he finally says, "That's it, I've done enough, let them go." That is not how this love behaves. It is patient beyond what patience should reasonably allow. It is stubborn in the most beautiful sense of the word, refusing to accept your absence as the final chapter, refusing to write you off just because you've written yourself off. I want to slow down here and talk about specific kinds of tired, because giving up rarely shows up as one clean feeling. It shows up in 100 small, ordinary disguises, and it helps to name a few of them. Sometimes it looks like a parent lying awake, replaying every mistake they've made with their children, certain that the damage is permanent, certain that the distance between them and the people they love most is now too wide to close. If that's you tonight, hear this. Love that is still trying is not disqualified from repair. The very fact that it keeps you up at night, that it grieves you, is proof the love in you is still alive and still working. Repair is slow and often invisible from the inside, but it is not impossible. Nothing about your family is beyond being reached. Sometimes it looks like someone standing at the edge of a career or a dream they poured everything into, watching it collapse, wondering what all those years were even for. If that's you, understand that nothing you built in good faith, with real effort, real sacrifice, real hope, simply evaporates. The shape it takes next may look nothing like what you planned. That does not mean it was wasted. Some of the most meaningful chapters in a person's life begin exactly at the point where the old plan fell apart. Sometimes it looks like a marriage running on fumes. Two people who used to know each other completely, now moving through the same house like strangers, unsure if there's anything left worth fighting for. If that's you, I won't pretend every relationship is meant to be saved. But I will say this. As long as there is a willingness, however small, however exhausted, to keep showing up, there is still material to work with. Love that has gone quiet is not the same as love that is gone. Sometimes it looks like someone lying in a hospital bed or sitting beside one, watching a body fail in ways no amount of hoping can reverse, wondering how a good love could allow this kind of suffering to exist at all. This is the hardest one, and I won't insult it with a tidy answer, but I will tell you that presence does not require explanation to be real. Even when the why is never given, the with you is never withdrawn. You are not walking through that room alone, even when it feels like the most alone place in the world. Sometimes giving up looks quieter than any of that. It looks like simply feeling numb. Not devastated, not in crisis, just flat. Going through the motions of a life that used to have color in it, and now feels gray. If that's you, I want you to know that numbness is not the absence of care. It is often just care that has been carrying too much for too long without rest. It is not a sign that you're broken beyond use. It is a sign that you need to be tended to, not fixed. Whatever shape your particular exhaustion takes tonight, none of it disqualifies you from being pursued. None of it moves you outside the reach of a love that specializes precisely in the places that feel unreachable. There's one more thing worth saying here about the difference between being given up on and simply being let alone for a while. Those two things get confused so easily, especially in seasons of silence. But letting someone alone, giving them room to wrestle, to doubt, to walk the long way around before they come back, is not the same as abandonment. Sometimes the most respectful love is the love that doesn't force itself on you. It waits at the door without pounding on it. It leaves the porch light on without demanding you come inside before you're ready. That patience can feel, from where you're standing, indistinguishable from absence. But it isn't absence. It's restraint. It's a love secure enough in itself that it doesn't need to chase you down the driveway to prove it's real. If you've spent years assuming the quiet meant you'd been left behind, consider the possibility that it simply meant you were being trusted with the walk. Trusted to find your way back in your own time, without coercion, without a love that only counts if it's loud. Let's talk practically for a moment. Because I know some of you are not just listening to this as an idea. You're listening because tonight, right now, you feel like you're standing at the edge of giving up yourself. Not just on faith, on everything. The weight has gotten heavy enough that you've started to wonder if there's any point in continuing to try. If that's where you are, I want to speak directly to you, gently, the way you'd speak to someone standing too close to a ledge. You are not required to have this figured out tonight. You are not required to feel strong or hopeful or even certain that any of this is true. All that's being asked of you right now is smaller than that. Just don't walk away yet. Just stay one more night. Just let the possibility exist that you are still being held, even in the parts of you that feel completely numb. Healing rarely comes as a single dramatic moment. Mostly it comes as a long series of small, unremarkable choices to stay. To not slam the door, to not burn the bridge, to not make the permanent decision in the middle of a temporary storm. If tonight all you can manage is staying, that is enough. That is not weakness. That is quietly one of the bravest things a person can do. I want you to consider, too, that the very fact you're here, listening to this, at whatever hour this is playing for you, is not an accident. People don't stumble into words like these by pure chance. Something in you is still reaching, even if it doesn't feel like reaching. Even exhaustion has a kind of hope buried inside it, because if you had truly given up completely, you wouldn't still be listening for a voice that might tell you it's not over. It's not over. I want to say that plainly, without decoration, because sometimes the plainest sentence carries the most weight. Whatever chapter you're in right now, the addiction you can't seem to shake, the marriage that feels like it's collapsing under its own weight, the diagnosis that has rearranged every plan you had, the grief that hasn't lifted the way people told you it would, the faith that has gone quiet and cold. None of it is the final word. None of it is proof that you've been abandoned. It is simply the middle of something you can't see the end of yet. There's an old idea, worn smooth by centuries of people repeating it because they needed it to be true, that says nothing is wasted. Not the wandering years, not the mistakes, not the seasons that felt like punishment, but were actually preparation you didn't recognize at the time. Somehow, in ways that rarely make sense while you're living them, even the wreckage gets folded into something that is used for good. Not because the wreckage itself was good, because the love handling it refuses to let anything, even your worst chapters, go to complete waste. I think about the people throughout history who felt the most disqualified, who carried shame they thought was permanent, who ran from responsibility, who denied what they knew was true out of fear, who doubted right up until the moment they saw something with their own eyes. Every single one of them was still used, still loved, still given another chapter. Their failures were not the end of their usefulness. In some strange, upside-down way, their failures often became the very thing that made their later lives meaningful. The scar that let them speak with real compassion to someone else standing where they used to stand. Your failures are not disqualifying you from something good either. They may, in time, become the very thing that lets you reach someone else who feels exactly the way you feel tonight. Nothing about your story is wasted. Not the parts you're proud of, and not the parts you'd erase if you could. I want to close by bringing you back to the center of all of this, because it's easy, in a message like this, to focus so much on your unworthiness or your struggle that you lose sight of the actual point. The point was never really about you being good enough. It was always about the nature of the love itself. It is patient. It is not proud. It does not insist on its own way. It does not keep a record of wrongs. It does not delight in your failure. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. That kind of love does not have a shelf life. It does not expire after a certain number of disappointments. It was never fragile to begin with. You cannot exhaust something that was never running on a limited supply. So tonight, wherever you are, whatever room, whatever city, whatever hour, I want you to let your shoulders drop for a moment. Let the grip loosen on whatever you've been holding so tightly. Whether that's shame or fear, or the exhausting effort of trying to earn something that was never for sale in the first place. You are not too far gone. You are not too late. You are not too broken, too angry, too tired, too disappointing to be wanted. The story is not finished. The chapter you're in now is not the whole book. And the love that has carried you this far, even through the years you didn't notice it, even through the silence that felt like absence, has not moved. It has not cooled. It has not turned away. It is still here, steady, patient, unhurried, completely undeterred by everything you thought would be the final straw. Rest in that tonight, not because you've earned rest, but because rest was offered long before you ever thought to ask for it. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind quiet. Let the accusations that have been circling all day finally lose their grip one by one as you drift towards sleep. You are held. You are known completely, and still wanted completely. You are not being given up on, not tonight, not tomorrow, not in whatever season comes after this one. You are being kept. Let every worry you carried into this evening loosen its grip just a little. The bills, the diagnosis, the argument that hasn't been resolved, the child who won't call back, the years you can't get back. Set them down for tonight. They will still be there in the morning if they need your attention. But they do not need it right now. Right now, all that's being asked of you is to rest. Feel the weight of your body sinking into whatever is holding you, the mattress, the chair, the floor. Feel your breathing slow, one breath at a time, without forcing it, in and out. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to prove. No performance required to be worthy of this stillness. If your mind starts to circle back toward the old arguments, the ones that say you don't deserve this peace, that you haven't earned this rest, that someone as flawed as you has no right to feel this safe, let those thoughts pass by like clouds. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to answer them. Just let them drift past without following them out the door. They have no authority here. You were never asked to be flawless to be loved. You were only ever asked to stay close enough to be found. And tonight, simply by being here, simply by listening this far, you have done exactly that. Somewhere in the quiet of this night, whatever is broken in you is being tended to, slowly, patiently, without rush. You don't have to understand how. You don't have to feel it happening in order for it to be true. Healing rarely announces itself. It simply happens, underground, the way roots grow before anything visible breaks the surface. So let go, a little more, of whatever you've been white-knuckling. Let go of the need to fix everything tonight. Let go of the fear that you are somehow running out of chances, running out of time, running out of the kind of patience that was never running low to begin with. You are not running out of anything. You are being carried into something, a new morning, a new mercy, a new chapter you cannot yet see the shape of, but one that is already being written with more care than you could ever write it yourself. Rest now. You are safe. You are seen. And you are not and never have been alone. Let the silence hold you the rest of the way. There is nothing left to do tonight except breathe and trust and sleep.